Yeah, yes,
Oh,
hypoglycemia. This is a topic near and dear to my heart because my dad has been suffering with it for, well, all of his adult life that I'm aware of, all of my life. So I've seen what hypoglycemia can do to him. And we were on a vacation one time, I think in Wisconsin on a lake or something in a cabin. And instead of out fishing, my dad was pretty much in a coma, laying in bed. His blood sugar had dropped severely. And there was a couple hours there where we weren't sure if he was going to make it out of there. So that was a scary memory from my childhood. I think I might have been in my 20s by then, but yeah, that was near and dear. So, Scott, before we get started, I'm going to do a quick reminder of let's see, the disclaimer. So, Dr. Scott is, this whole broadcast is for informational purposes only and is not replacing medical advice from your own physician. So, we take no responsibility or liability for anything that anyone does and supposedly blames us for, right? Okay.
it happens.
It does happen. Yeah, you got to be careful in this litigious world we live in.
But Joe said,
Right. Joe said, yeah, blah, blah, blah. All right. Well, let's get into it. Hypoglycemia. First of all, it's always good to start with a definition. So if you could tell us, what is hypoglycemia?
okay, this is actually really important because people often misunderstand what hypoglycemia really is. Hypoglycemia only means low blood sugar. And the symptoms that people get are only a relative low blood sugar. So let me give you an example. If you have something like your blood sugar is always in the 200s and 300s and consistently in the 200s and 300s, and all of a sudden you fast or something, or you take a bunch of insulin and you drop into the low 100s, or even 70s and 80s and 90s. You may feel, and a lot of people do, hypoglycemic, even though your blood sugar is technically normal. And because normal is between 70 and 90, that's optimal. 70 to 100 is considered normal. 70 to 90 is optimal. So even though your blood sugar is normal, you may feel hypoglycemic. So it's not enough just to check your blood sugar and say, oh, this is what it is, and therefore I'm hypoglycemic, because some people can be down in the 60s and feel great and not have any hypoglycemia, any symptoms of hypoglycemia. I'll give you an example. They did a study with rats where they dropped their blood sugar into the 40s. Now, most people in the 40s are going to be, headaches, feel fatigued and weak and can't think clearly, brain fog, and super tired, like can't even get out of bed. So the rats are laying around for about 3 days, and on the fourth day, they're up running around doing all the rat stuff and acting like normal rats. They checked their blood sugar, and it was still in the 40s. So it took, so they did a biopsy of the blood-brain barrier, and they found 10 times the glucose transport proteins in their blood-brain barrier to pull sugar out of the blood into the brain. So your body can adapt to things. So the number by itself isn't necessarily what's really important. The symptoms are more what determines hypoglycemia than the number. And you can consider that there is acute hypoglycemia, and that's where somebody drops their blood sugar quickly. And then there's chronic hypoglycemia, and that's where people, like right after they eat, they're okay, they feel good for a half an hour to an hour, and then their blood sugar drops low. And it's pretty consistent. Like every time I eat, my blood sugar drops low. And I'm getting the symptoms of hypoglycemia. So you can have it acute and only one time in your life, or you can have it like your dad, Joe, like you were talking about. He gets it, and he gets hypoglycemia on a more consistent basis.
Right. Yeah, he called it, or calls it getting a spell. So, I'm getting a spell. I need some sugar. Yeah, so he usually carries around some sugar tablets or something, candy. because that, boosts it back up pretty quick. But yeah, so what do you do in the short term? Like, is it good for my dad to pop a sugar pill to try to get back up to a little bit more livable number quickly? I know that's not a long-term solution, but is that
Yeah.
basically?
In a way, yes. That relieves the symptoms immediately. But if you're chasing hypoglycemia all the time, like someone who has a consistent problem, and every time they eat, their blood sugar drops low, and it may stay low for a long time because they release a whole bunch of insulin, and the insulin causes all the cells to bring the sugar into the cells, and now there's no more sugar left in the blood. And so your brain is going, hey, wait a minute, I don't have any sugar, and the heart's going be pounding really hard because it doesn't have enough sugar. Um, so in the immediate sense, yes, that's fine. And what's really cool about like our program, the Diabetes Reversal program, in phase 1, while we cut out carbohydrates, while we cut out carbohydrates and simple sugars, you can still eat. You're not like limiting, you're not like fasting right away, you're not dropping your blood sugar, although your blood sugar may drop low. Over a long period of time, the gradual lowering of your blood sugar is really good for you. That's how you get rid of the insulin resistance. So in the immediate sense, yes, it's okay to eat something. Yeah, like your dad, candy bars. I tell people to have nuts or carrots available.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, candy bars are fun.
Yeah. We talk about the 3 healthy drinks that are, you're not supposed to drink really. And one of them is orange juice. And I think it's, most people know this, but a lot of people think orange juice is healthy because it's, fruit juice, and fruit is healthy, right? But, it's like the go-to for for hypoglycemia for people. If you want to raise your blood sugar fast, like orange juice, there's not much better than that. It goes straight to your blood stream pretty much.
Yeah, but then it can drop just as fast.
Yeah.
That's why if you have something with a little bit of like protein, like nuts, or carbohydrates, starches like carrots or something, then you're or even fruit, then you're getting the sugar, but it's more of a long term. You're gonna have more. It can prevent hypoglycemia an hour later, for example.
Yeah. Does fiber play a role, a big role?
Yes, because fiber slows the absorption of the sugar so that you're gradually absorbing it. And in the gradual absorption, then you can maintain that sugar high enough so that you're not going to drop your blood sugar so low.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the meals that would trigger my dad's hypoglycemia the most were like the, simple sugars, pancakes or something like that. Just, no fiber, no real nutritional value, things like that. So he has to be very careful in what he eats. And so let's talk about the connection between hypoglycemia and type 2 diabetes. And is it more common for somebody with diabetes to also have hypoglycemia?
Oh yes, absolutely. In fact, that's the way it usually starts. During the initial phases of before you get high blood sugar, so that before you get type 2 diabetes, where you actually have high blood sugar, people often get low blood sugar. And so when they eat, they release extra insulin. And because they release extra insulin, then their blood sugar drops low quickly and easily. And then because it drops low, they need to eat more, so they release more insulin. And this is a part of the process of developing diabetes, is having these episodes of low blood sugar. So that's kind of you can even count that as a metabolic problem. If you're getting hypoglycemia, it means you're starting to get insulin resistance, or could develop insulin resistance, which is the beginning of type 2 diabetes.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to say a quick hello to all of our attendees. We've got people from all over the place. If you want to say hello in the chat box, raise your hand, say hi, tell us where you're from. We already have one question in here from Skip. Skip, good to see you on here again. And so Skip asked, can you get hypoglycemia even if you don't take any medications?
Oh, excellent question. Okay, so the corollary to this, first of all, is do diabetes medications cause hypoglycemia? And some of them can. Most of the new ones do, and some of the really old ones do. So the older ones like glipizide, glyburide, what they do is they make the pancreas release extra insulin. And remember, that's part of the problem. If you release extra insulin, yes, it lowers your blood sugar, but it could lower it too much. If you don't eat like a high carbohydrate meal, for example, you could get low blood sugar because of the medications. And then to answer Skip's question is the other part of that, and that is that you get low blood sugar when you release more insulin than you need for that meal that you've eaten. So some people are just so resistant to insulin, their pancreas puts out extra insulin. And so, for example, some things like stevia or artificial sweeteners of any kind of artificial sweeteners, even like monk fruit extract and all of those, where you're getting something sweet without any sugar to back it up. So then you end up with because of the taste of sweet, the pancreas puts out insulin just because you tasted something sweet. And now you have this insulin with no sugar. You didn't need any sugar. So that drops your blood sugar low. That's why people who drink diet drinks gain weight faster because they release more insulin. And they get hypoglycemia easier and end up with diabetes in the long run faster. So diet drinks can produce what Skip's talking about, hypoglycemia, without eating any sugar and without taking any medications.
Yeah. Well, and you think about like our food is our medications a lot of times, like what you put into your body, whether it is a chemical compound or a natural substance or anything in between, it does affect your pancreas, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So is there any way to like trick your pancreas in a sense so that it doesn't do that? So you can have stevia or monk fruit or something that's known to be a little bit healthier, or would that kind of defeat the purpose?
Yeah, well, not everybody does. Some people, their taste buds are connected to their pancreas pretty strongly, to where when they taste something sweet, the pancreas puts out insulin. And other people don't. It's found in societies. So if you look at people who are from the islands, for example, South Pacific Islands, it's pretty easy for them to gain weight by eating sweet things or starchy things. Their pancreas is really connected to their taste buds. Also, there's a group of people called the Pima tribe in Arizona, and they have cousins across the border in Mexico, the Tarahumara Indians in the Sierra Madre. And they have the same sort of genetic structure where they are really sensitive to sweet and carbohydrates, so that when they eat, they release a lot of insulin. The insulin allows them to store more fat, so that they can get through the lean times because they live in a desert. So but what's really interesting is the Tarahumara Indians in Mexico, they don't get any government assistance, so they have to make all their own food. They have to grow their beans and corn, and then they have to grind it and make it and make their tortillas and do everything from scratch, so to speak. Whereas in Arizona, the Pimas, they have all of the American types of foods. So they're eating, fry breads and pizzas and drinking sodas a lot and stuff like that. And so they have like an 80% rate of diabetes type 2. Like 8 out of 10 of them have diabetes. It's the highest rate. Whereas across the border in Mexico, not a single case. Nobody has diabetes. They have the same genetics. So genetics can play a part.
Yeah, we've just been studying the Marshall Islands phenomenon, and it's a small island just basically beyond Hawaii, a couple thousand miles in the middle of the ocean, and they went from basically zero rate of diabetes back in the, I think it was the 60s and 70s, to the highest rate of diabetes in the world, I believe, and is probably close to what you were just talking about. And there was a research team from Loma Linda University, I believe. Is that what it's called? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they studied the tribe and the island and realized that everybody there had taken on the Western standard American diet, and everybody got diabetes. So it was such a strong correlation. And so they implemented a program, same thing we teach, and they reversed almost all of their type 2 diabetes. So it's such a strong
Wow.
correlation. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've got another question here. Leslie, I believe you have a question. If you're going to hop on and tell us a little bit about what we were talking about pregame here.
Okay, now let me see if I can start my video. Here we go.
All right. And anyone else, if you're ready with the question, let us know. We'd love to have you hop on video as well, just like Leslie's doing here.
Okay. I tried to get my husband actually to come here and ask this question, but we're kind of wondering if he's maybe having some oh, he said he's coming down. So he may be showing up on this webinar. You never know.
All right.
But he's starting to notice when he travels, especially if he has an early morning flight and he's not eating before he gets on that flight, or maybe they were up late the night before, went out for dinner late, maybe had a drink or something. Oh, here he is. We'll see what his side of the story is. 1 second. Are you coming in? Oh, I locked the door on it. Anyway, but he'll notice that when he has the early morning flights, he'll get up, and by the time he gets to on the plane, he is not feeling well, and almost to the point where he's like, I think I'm going to pass out. He'll have to actually. It seems to be better, I think, when he's on the ground. So he's done this twice when he's had to fly. He's had to lay down either in the aisle or try to get to the back. Here he is. Maybe we'll let him tell the story. But anyway, we're just kind of, we've been waiting to hear this webinar about hypoglycemia to see kind of what you had to say, see if that might be something that sounds like what he's experiencing. And do you want to come and talk?
Sure.
You're live to the whole world right now. So whoops.
Good morning.
Morning, Tyler.
Sure.
How are you guys?
Excellent.
Good.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Okay, so you had an airplane issue. Is it only on airplanes, or does it happen other times too?
No, I've had it at the gym a couple of times. I've had it at the end of a morning run before.
Yeah.
Usually in the mornings. I've never had it in the evening, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's not uncommon at all. In fact, that's kind of what we were talking about with hypoglycemia. But in this case, skipping meals. You don't want to have like a full stomach when you go to the gym. So you say, well, I'm not going to eat anything. I'm going to go in and work out, and then I'll eat afterward. So what happens is you use up your blood sugar. Exercise, in some people, exercise will open up those ports, those insulin ports, and allow sugar into the muscles. And in doing that, in pulling sugar into the muscles, the blood sugar drops. And when the blood sugar drops, the brain has no store for sugar. So you can get a hypoglycemia easily. Now, lying down doesn't necessarily make it better. That would be low blood pressure, can cause similar symptoms. But people who lie down and they still feel weak and tired, but they're laying down, they probably have hypoglycemia. And by itself, it's not really a bad thing to get hypoglycemia. Like I said before, like the rat study, they had the rats for 3 days with blood sugar of 40 for 3 whole days, and it increased their glucose transport into their brain. So it allowed them to live at a blood sugar of 40. Now, I'm sure they wouldn't have had full energy. I don't know, but you can't ask them, gee, do you feel really tired right now?
Right.
So the hypoglycemia helps us to make more glucose transport proteins so that our brains, our hearts, and our kidneys and our nerves get enough blood sugar, because that's how we prevent damage to the kidneys. And why we talked about last time about why people would get kidney damage, or a couple times ago, before kidney damage, before they even have high blood sugar. It's not the high blood sugar, it's because the kidneys aren't getting any energy. In the brain too, Alzheimer's that we talked about last time, that's a matter of never having hypoglycemia, so that the number of glucose transport proteins gradually decreases. So the answer to your question is, number one, by itself, it's not bad, but you may find that if you eat a more low carbohydrate diet, that you don't have the dips and valleys, or the peaks and valleys that you have if you eat more carbohydrates.
That's interesting, because I did a very low carb diet probably 6 months ago, and it was essentially no carbs for 30 days. And it was hands down the best I've ever felt in my entire life.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't eat at all. I mean, I didn't work out at all during that time period, but my body actually felt stronger, which I probably wasn't. But like the way that my body reacted and felt throughout the day, to wake up at a 5:36 in the morning and stay up till midnight was nothing. It literally didn't affect me at all. It was almost like I had a runner's high multiple times throughout the day. And during that time period, the circulation in my hands was a lot better. I also felt way better, and I never had one of those situations happen during that time either.
Yeah. So that's a great thing. So now you know, because you've tried it and you go, oh yeah, that does work. And now you know why those
Awesome.
Peaks and valleys will change.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, I posted a link to bartonwebinar.com, but then I clicked on it and it didn't load for me. So I'm wondering if it is working for other people. Kevin said it's working for him. So if somebody listening could just go visit bartonwebinar.com, that's where I wanted to point people to tell everyone about our products, the Diabetes Solution Kit, which I held up earlier. This can also be found on bartonpublishing.com. But the Diabetes Solution Kit is really what we're talking about on almost all of our calls, including today. And we talk about the Diabetes Reversal Plan, which consists of 3 phases. So if you're full-blown type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, we really advise, I guess shouldn't say advise. We talk about lowering your carbohydrates to 20 grams a day, and other foods that you should be eating so that your blood sugars don't go out of whack, but actually you can reset your pancreas and other systems in your body and just get a healthy reboot. And then you watch your blood sugar numbers and your insulin markers and A1C. And then as you get to a certain level, then you can go to phase 2. So Dr. Saunders, if you could talk about, one of the questions people have is like, does this plan work for people with hypoglycemia?
Well, that's a great question. We just had the answer, or at least an answer. So nothing works for everyone. But like Tyler said, you know what? I get these, peaks and valleys. And in the valleys, I feel really bad if I skip a meal or something. And whereas when he was eating a lower carbohydrate diet, he said practically zero, that he didn't have that issue, and he felt better and stronger and was more consistent. And that's the kind of thing, that's what our program does essentially, is what he was talking about, is like he did the phase 1 and found a lot of benefit from that. But not everybody's going to have that same benefit. Some people, when they drop their carbs a lot, they'll still release insulin. And I found a few cases of people in my practice that did that because they'd seen their pancreas is sensitive to protein. So they were eating a very high protein diet and avoiding carbohydrates, but the protein was causing a release of insulin, and they were still gaining weight on protein, even though they had no carbs. So some people are going to have those kinds of issues to where they can still get hypoglycemia because the insulin will drop their blood sugar down when they eat protein. So the best way to do it is kind of to follow the book and to decrease the carbs and not go on a necessarily zero carbohydrate diet, but have some so that you get some sugar. And then when you start dropping the insulin down, then you can start using fat for energy, and that's why.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This is a bit of a random question from Joe, but I think this will be kind of fun and helpful. So let's say it's a couple hours from now or wherever you are in the world and it's lunchtime. What would be a great meal to prepare that's quick and easy and very healthy and fits our plan? Give us 2 or 3 options.
Okay. Generally, something easy to prepare that I like is these days salads are so easy. You can buy in already packaged the lettuce, the spinach, and whatever. You can buy mixtures of greens and whatever, and you just take a handful out and put it on a plate. And then you can even buy other vegetables already cut up. Your mushrooms are already cut up, and then you can put a salad dressing on. It's quick and easy, and you can even buy like the smoked salmon and stuff that you can make a really nice salmon salad, and it's great. And it works on our program, and it's a lot cheaper than going to a restaurant and a lot better for you. Another example, I have made I found that if you don't have to cook, so I have made soup in advance, and I have soup in the refrigerator, and I just take broth and I chop up a bunch of vegetables in it, and I mostly eat vegetarian, but sometimes I eat meat, so sometimes I'll put meat in it, especially if the family's around. And having the soup, you bring it out, you warm it up, and it's quick, it's easy, and it's really good for you. It has a lot of nutrition, but doesn't have a lot of carbohydrates, and it works really well.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned salad dressing. Now you have to be careful with salad dressing too, because a lot of there's tons of sugar in that. So what are your go-to, what are top 2 or 3 salad dressings that you like to?
Okay. So I was using vinegar, and I found this spiced rice vinegar, and then I looked, it was really good, and then I looked on the ingredients, and they like have a ton of sugar in it. So I was like, okay, forget that. So I went to balsamic vinegar, which works really well. And sometimes I'll mix it with oil and put other spices on it. But mostly what I like to do is balsamic vinegar, and then I'll chop a bunch of cilantro on it. I just love the taste of cilantro. So to make it taste really good. And then some olive oil. Instead of buying a salad dressing, I just have a bottle of olive oil and a bottle of balsamic vinegar. It works well. And then I spice it with whatever. I put, salt and pepper and other stuff.
And there are some good ranch dressings out there too that don't have much sugar in them. That are mostly fat that I think are fine, right?
Yeah. The ones that are made with buttermilk, the real dressings that really have buttermilk, and they're not just like canola oil with emulsifiers.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's good. I'm getting hungry.
Already?
Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions here. Let's see. So Skip asked about, what percentage, this is referring to our Alzheimer's call last week, but what percentage of Alzheimer's patients have diabetes or had diabetes?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I don't know that statistic. So the other side is the percent of people who have Alzheimer's that have type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
I'm actually really interested in that. I would look that one up.
Yeah. We'll have to get back to you on that one, Skip. That's a
Okay.
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look that one.
Yeah. All right. There was another question from Pam, and I think Pam is with us. So hello again, Pam. Great to have you. If you want to hop on, feel free. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask a question that you had asked a couple of weeks ago on our Facebook page. So she asked about lectins. So there's a lot of information going around about the dangers of lectins that are in some of the foods that we eat, and even in our salads, potentially in tomatoes, I believe, and different things like that. So are lectins bad?
Okay. That is such a loaded question. Okay, so the marketing in the world is based on fear. And if you think about it, you go to your doctor and they say, you better take this blood pressure medication or you're going to die. Is that true? Yes. And what if I don't take the blood pressure medication? Well, then you're still going to die. Either way, you're going to die. But this use of fear mongering to market our products is an easy motivational way to do it, because if you don't, I mean, the other way is, we'll bring world peace and happiness and joy to everybody. And that's okay too. And sometimes that marketing is done. But when you have something that's toxic like lectins are toxins. That is absolutely true. They bind to if you think of them, they're like the immune system of plants against animals. That's what lectins are. So, and guess what? We're animals. And so their immune system is fighting against us. And so these lectins bind even onto the lining of our intestines, and they create problems like leaky gut, because the cells, when they're bound to the cells, and the cells don't reproduce, and we need those cells to reproduce to create the lining of our intestines, a confluent layer, so that there's a good solid layer. When we always have those lectins there, then you could get something like leaky gut. Other people react to them strongly, like solanine in potatoes and tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. And there's some lectins are really, really toxic. Like if you were to take just a handful of red beans raw and chew them up and eat them, you could theoretically die from that. They're that toxic. So they need to be soaked and drained and then boiled enough so that you reduce the toxicity and the amount of lectins, so it makes your beans edible. So the question, are they toxic? Yes. But think about this. You take the big picture and say, well, how have we survived for millions or thousands or whatever, thousands or millions of years? How have animals survived? How have humans survived? We have lectins. And so I'm going to tell you a secret. And this is something that the people that are yelling out about how toxic lectins are. Lectins, while they're toxic, at the same time, they're signals to the body to let us know what we're eating and how much and what kinds of enzymes to make. And then the way we rid ourselves of lectins is between meals. We have no food between meals, so that when our stomachs empty out and our intestines no longer have food in them, then they clean out. The intestines clean out, and they clean out. I mean, we're talking gallons of fluid, like soap is being dumped into our small intestines, and you hear gurgle, 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 and you go, oh, I must be hungry because my stomach's growling. And that's actually the intestines squeegeeing out everything from the intestines. And all of that gets dumped into the large intestine, and then the water gets reabsorbed, and the junk, all of the bacteria and the lectins and all the poisons and toxins and whatever, stool stuff, food particles, they stay in the large intestine, and then the bacteria digest them, and then we get them out in the toilet. So when we eat in the right way, if you're eating like raw almonds constantly, you could get toxic on that. If you eat kale every single day for every meal, you could get toxic on that. So yes, you can get toxic, but if you do it right, where you eat periodically certain things, like let's say your garden's full of kale, and so you have kale you make kale soup, and you make a kale salad and kale everything for a couple of months, and then you don't have kale anymore. Then you no longer have that lectin, and you won't become toxic. And the same with any food. If you're not eating the same food all the time, then your intestines will clean out. That's number one. And then number two is if you allow space between meals, about 5 hours between meals, then you'll have time for your small intestine to clean out, and then you can regrow your lining of your intestines and fix everything up, and to wait for the next meal.
Yeah, well, that's great. Awesome secret there. I mean, this goes against a lot of what we've been taught for so many years about eating, 5 meals a day plus snacks in between. So you never let your
bad advice.
You never let your stomach to be empty. Never let that reset system to happen, and that internal scrubbing system, basically. Yeah. I am familiar with the fear marketing. I mean, we sometimes use that ourselves just because it's the strongest motivator to get people to take action, to make healthy choices.
If you don't do our program, you're going to die, or you're going to get Alzheimer's, or your kidneys are going to fail. But you know what? It's true.
Yeah. I mean, we don't go quite that extreme, but fear is a healthy motivator, but it can also be abused. And so we try not to do that. We try to use that to motivate people to take action. If other, positive, reinforcing, truthful information isn't going to be enough, then sometimes you have to resort to fear. Not that we like that, but so I want to tie this back in. My dad, we started talking about him having a lot of hypoglycemia issues. And what's interesting is I believe it all started when it was like 1976. I was 3 years old, and my dad had ulcer surgery, which I don't think they do ulcer surgery anymore. They got better ways to fix ulcers now. But they went in and did something inside of his stomach, and I think they clipped something that caused bile to leak into his stomach. And so he suffered from acid reflux and bile reflux for 10 years. That's kind of the story, like my family story that we go back. But I know that that gut health plays a huge role in your metabolism and hypoglycemia as well. And I also know that when he eats an apple, like that's like his secret was eating an apple. And I think it's the digestive enzymes in the apple, the leptin, not to be confused with lectin. I believe it's leptin, right? Maybe it's apple lectin. I don't know. Now I'm confused.
Pectin.
Leptin, lectin, pectin.
Yeah, it's a fiber. It's a fiber in the apple as the pectin. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's what it was. And so like we have a product called Healthy Gut Support that has 3-in-1. It's got the prebiotics, probiotics,
which is fiber.
And digestive enzymes. So the apple pectin is in that product. And but I think it's important to have a healthy gut system. And fasting is highly recommended. Obviously, that's the most natural thing to do. But talk about like when is it almost necessary to have that, like to be using healthy gut support?
When I've had several cases of people who, even though they spread out their meals, they have 5 hours between meals, so that allows their stomach to reset and their pancreas to reset, to make the stomach acid, to make the enzymes to digest food properly. They just don't digest well, and their digestive system is not working. In those kind of cases, healthy gut support has been dramatic. I mean, I had just a couple of weeks ago a woman who was going from gastroenterologist to gastroenterologist. They're putting tubes down her throat and giving her things to swallow, and doing all these tests and everything, and nothing was working. It was really hard for her to get around. Because she couldn't function very well because her stomach was always a problem. And then she started healthy gut support, and she says, wow, I can digest my food. I don't have diarrhea anymore. And I don't have that, the pain in my stomach anymore. So some people, kind of like some people are really sensitive to insulin and some aren't. Some don't make any insulin and some do. The pancreas makes digestive enzymes, and some people make really good digestive enzymes and never need healthy gut support. And some people just need that support. They need enzymes and probiotics and prebiotics to start things working.
Yeah, certainly can't hurt anything. You're just adding live microorganisms and healthy bacteria and like you said, fiber into your body. And so
and you gotta think that throughout history, from the beginning of time, mankind and animals and everybody have always eaten a lot of probiotics. I mean, you think of that. I always say peas porridge in the pot 9 days old had a whole bunch of probiotics in it, as well as prebiotics. And so people lived on bacteria-laden food, and now we irradiate it, we pasteurize it, we boil it, we can it, we freeze it, anything to prevent bacteria from growing. And now our food doesn't really contain probiotics anymore, like everybody's food used to. So we have to actually look for food that has probiotics. You can't just buy sauerkraut. If it's bottled, it has no probiotics. You have to buy like the natural sauerkraut that actually has the bacteria in it. So we take pills because our food doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's another question here. I'm trying to remember if we answered this yet or not, but it has to do with whole grains and basically kind of a theological question about why would God create or tell us to eat, bread and whole grains and different things like that. Yet it's so bad for us. I think we did cover this. I wouldn't be bad to touch on it again though, because I think it is. Yeah.
So why is it bad for us? Well, what God created is not bad for us.
Right.
And actually, the grains provide pretty much everything you need. It has protein in it. It has carbohydrates. It has all kinds of nutrients. And then we take that, we grind it up as fine as possible. So it's super fine. And then we take out all the stuff that contains all of those nutrients and all those vitamins, and we leave that pure white fluffy starch. It's so good. It makes this light, airy bread, and it's amazing. And then we add extra gluten to it so that it's kind of sticky and mushy and firm and it really light and airy. So it's our processing really. And you think about it, enriched white flour. What does that mean? Well, that means they've taken all the nutrients out and they add a few nutrients back in. That's what the enriched means. And if you look at it, it'll say we've added B1, B2, B3, B6, done. But that's a tiny portion of the nutrients that were in that grain originally.
Yeah. Well, so there's a bread out there that I like. It's called Ezekiel bread, and I think it's typically found in the freezer section. Can you talk about that? What's the difference with that?
Okay, Ezekiel is mostly a sprouted bread and uses the grains that are from Ezekiel 4:9, I think it is.
Yep, 4:9.
Yeah. And so they're listed there. And so they put them together and they sprout them. And sprouted doesn't necessarily mean they're actually growing. They're soaked. And part of what that is to get the lectins out of them. So, like we soak beans and pour off the water, and then we cook our beans. That gets the lectins off of them too.
Okay.
So they're sprouted grains of various kinds, and some of them are even legumes. So grains and legumes, so this kind of bread, actually, I agree with you. Very healthy, has a lot of fiber, a lot of nutrition, and so it'll grow the good bacteria in your intestines. And it'll slow the absorption of the carbohydrates so you don't get diabetes. I agree. So if you're going to eat bread, I agree.
Yeah. So Ezekiel 4:9 says, take also unto thee wheat and barley and beans and lentils and millet and spelt and put them in one vessel. So that's where that comes from. Now that you still have to be careful because there's still, high amount of carbohydrates, but it's still, there is more fiber. And I know, I think you can, this brings up another question. If the 20 grams a day carbohydrates, is that, I think you said that before, it is net carbs. So if you have 20 or 30 grams of carbs, but 10 grams of fiber, does that fiber reduce you back down, or is that a myth?
No, it reduces you back down. It actually, so if you have, so then you only have, if you have 20 grams of carbs and 10 of that is fiber, the fiber doesn't even count. It's really only the net carbs, the 10 gram.
Well, that's good news. So you might be able to get away with a slice of Ezekiel toast every once in a while, with some butter and with your big salad, of course.
In phase 2 and in phase 1, they probably won't do breads of any kind. Okay. But when you get to phase 2 and phase 3, people may find that they tolerate something like Ezekiel bread very well, because of the fiber doesn't allow a rapid absorption of the sugar, so it evens things out nicely.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been great conversation. Lots of great information, and due to the clock here, I want to respect everyone's time, respect your time, and a little housekeeping. So if you visit the Barton Publishing Webinars YouTube channel, we have all of our webinars are posted there. You can subscribe to that channel and get notified anytime we post a new webinar or video there. We've seen our membership subscribership grow quite a bit these last couple of weeks. So it's great to have people watching and participating. We love the questions. We love to hear from people. A lot of great feedback from people, even today, Scott, that are just messaging how helpful this has been. So appreciate you taking the time to really give us solid, information that truly helps our lives, helps our longevity. And yes, we are all going to die someday, but hey, let's live as vibrantly healthy as we can on this side of eternity. And also, when our bodies, the Bible says our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit. If you have the Holy Spirit in you, it's a whole nother topic, which is very important, but it's important for us to treat our bodies with that respect, and to put in it, to consume foods that are healthy, foods that are from the earth that God gave us, and not to be eating things that man has, processed and taken all the nutrition out and added sugar into. So I just want to encourage you and encourage myself, because I need the reminder to eat healthy, eat vibrant foods. You are what you eat. I remember that poster that was in my cafeteria when I was in elementary school. You are what you eat, and that's true. And there's so many good options out there. Get a copy of the Diabetes Solution Kit. We have recipes in here as well. There's a lot of different places you can connect with us on our Facebook page. You can become a member of Home Cures That Work and get monthly articles and recipes from Dr. Saunders and Cheryl and others on our team. And so this has just been fantastic. So Scott, thank you again. And we would love
Thanks
to
for
have,
inviting me. It's great.
We'd love to have a parting joke if we could. Your jokes are so great.
Okay. Did I already tell you the one about the dog running in circles?
You did. Yeah, Watchdog. Yes, that was a good one.
Ah,
And you,
okay.
oh, did you do the one about the pirate?
Yeah, last week.
Was
Did
that
that last week.
Okay, that's a good one. Why don't pirates take showers before they walk the plank? Yeah, and it's because they figure they'll just wash up on shore later, right? Yeah.